Hamas has released a video of captives it's holding in Gaza. In it, they're heard criticising the Israeli government's refusal to agree to a prisoner exchange. In the video, in which Al Jazeera has decided not to show, one of the captives directly addresses Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, saying that we are bearing the responsibility of your political security and military failure on October the 7th. There was no army, no one arrived, and no one protected us. We are innocent civilians who pay taxes to Israel. We are in captivity in a bad condition. You are killing us. The captive woman goes on to say, release us now, release their citizens, release their prisoners, release all of us. Let us go back to our families. Let's cross over to Sara, Khairat, our correspondent, who's live for us in occupied East Jerusalem. There's a reason we're not showing that video, as is Sara. It's part of, you might say, policy to protect the identity as well of the captives. But it's very stark, it's very graphic, and it's very to the point.
Absolutely, it's extraordinary actually to see this. There was no warning that this video would be released, and the accusations from one of the three captives, three women in their, I'd say, middle-aged. She really was criticising Netanyahu, and you know, some of the things she said was extraordinary. She blamed him for the failure of October 7 attack, for preventing it from happening, for saying that no army was present, no one came to help us, we're innocent citizens. She'd said that she'd posed the question, are you wanting to kill all of us? Do you want the military to kill us because of your failure and the deaths already? She's obviously referring to those killed because of the Hamas attack. Is this not enough? She says, release us now, release their prisoners and their citizens. Of course, she's referring to the request that was made by Hamas to release all of the Palestinian prisoners. If that was to happen, if Israel went through with this, they would then immediately release all of the captives. It's all for all, as some of the family members here have been asking Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to consider. I will say, though, it's not clear, of course, whether these were her own words, whether she was coerced into this. She seemed very angry, but usually in these situations it's difficult to tell. What we do know, though, is that family members here in Israel to those held captive or even those missing have for days been demanding from the Israeli government to give them answers. They've pleaded with them to find a solution to bringing back those family members as soon as possible, because of course with Israel attacking Gaza, and especially that turnaround in the last 3 or 4 days, they are really concerned for the survival of their relatives. In fact, supposed to be happening around this time is a meeting with the foreign ministry. That video, it seems, potentially may have been filmed yesterday, and that's because in that video she refers to a meeting between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and families of those held captive, which was the day before yesterday. How much of that information have they been able to see? Have they had access to local Israeli media? It's difficult to tell. Or were they given that information? Again, very hard to tell. But it seems to, if it's going to do anything, potentially put more pressure on a government that, you know, where there are calls in Israel increasingly to consider that option of exchange, which is, you know, to exchange those prisoners, Palestinian prisoners, to release them in exchange for releasing the captives. You know, this is at a time when Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been criticised a lot. In terms of reaction here, of course, this is only just coming out in the last 20 minutes or so. What we are seeing is that Israeli media, most of it hasn't covered this yet, but one of the main channels was discussing it, and they've already said that this is a propaganda video. They've called it Hamas using psychological warfare to terrorize the families of those being held captive. So certainly we'll have to see how they react react. And of course, you know, whether we'll get an official response from the government here. But already people on social media in Israel, the media is calling it a propaganda video, and they're concerned. To me, it seems like this is Hamas increasing that pressure. They'd already said, even last week, that they were willing to release more captives. They'd accused the Israeli government of not listening to them and ignoring them. Israel had, for the longest time since this attack that happened on October the 7th, said that they won't mediate with Hamas, and it was not even an option. And then you had Qatar, the US and Egypt all working behind the scenes on a possible ceasefire option for Hamas that they had requested initially in exchange for releasing more of those captives. Then in the last few days, as Israel increased its bombardment of Gaza, they then asked and said that they would immediately release all of those if 6,000 plus Palestinian prisoners were released. This is a really interesting development, very unexpected, but we'll have to see where this moves on from here.
Sara Khairat there for us in occupied East Jerusalem. Thank you.